why don't we begin as we always do with the Superhero Spotlight?
Select your hero.
And who do we got here? Well, why don't we let Lex Luthor tell us about it?
And now, you will fly to him, and you will battle him. To the death. Black and blue. Fight night. The greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. God versus man. Day versus night. Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
That sounds really dumb.
That is right. That is the Batman versus Superman through history, and that is a very recently released clip of him as Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor in the Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice film. And yeah, he's saying that to Superman the entire time. It's 23 seconds long, and I expected Superman to eventually just say, like, shut up.
Shut up.
I'm not going to fight Bat. Like, why? His answer after that should be, I'm not fighting him to the death. You're dumb.
Yeah,
Is he going to, like, blackmail him or something? Like,
yeah, he definitely is. They're making it pretty clear in the most recent stuff that he is the impetus for their fight. He is the one pushing the two of them against each other and tricking them into it, as has happened in previous comic books, which I will talk about in this very
all right, Purd, let's go.
Spotlight. Well, let's start from the beginning. Superman and Batman first appeared in the late 30s. Superman kind of started superhero comics in June 1938 with Action Comics #1. Within a year, May 1939, Batman first appears in Detective Comics 27.
Yes. Listeners, look to your left. Look to your right. One of you will be alive during Superman's 100th anniversary.
It's true.
Oh, man.
Just want to put some fear in people for no reason.
Yeah, no, I
they
thought
just
of that,
passed their 75th.
I'll be 50 years old.
When they were first published, they were not owned by the same company, but by 1940 they were. National Allied Publishing bought Detective Comics, and so then they became
Nabisco?
Yes.
I know it's such a crazy name, but if you want to talk about what their first meeting was, they were actually kept very separate. Yeah. Like in comic books, they didn't meet for a very long time. Technically, their first meeting was on the cover of World's Fair Comics 1940, a special published for the World's Fair of 1940, which I got to think that had to be a pretty bummer of a World's Fair, because normally those are like, let's look to the future, and at this point, like, Hitler's taking Poland, I think.
Hitler's taking Poland. Here's some cartoon characters.
Yeah. But Superman and Batman are here. They're here to tell you that we got quite a future. But in that case, and also in the comics for like All-Star Comics, the early Justice Society stuff, they're on the cover together, but they don't really interact. And they even published, like the World's Fair book had them on the cover along with Robin, but it was just to promote, if you buy this, you will get a Superman story and a Batman story. Reprints in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too dissimilar of like when you buy a Sports Illustrated with Ronda Rousey and, oh my God, a famous baseball player. I am at a loss for current baseball players. But you don't. That's the same.
Brian Wilson.
But that's like the same extravagance here. It's just two people featured on a cover to get people to buy something,
and it worked. But so it wouldn't be. They wouldn't share their first comic book story together until Superman 76, May 1952.
Jesus.
And it has this really great cover that starts what their relationship is going to be up until the 80s, which is Superman is trying to save Lois Lane, but then Batman shows up, and it's Superman reaching for Lois Lane saying, this looks like a job for Superman. Then Batman swinging to the other side saying, no, this looks like a job for Batman. And so it's just this kind of friendly, chummy one-upsmanship.
Yeah, right.
Their first time meeting each other was Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne take a cruise separately, and thanks to a series of mix-ups, they're put in the same room and are forced to share a bed, which in the 50s was just a thing like, I guess we're sharing a bed. We're just a couple of guys like in the army.
Did this have a special guest appearance by Horatio Sands?
and well, this is where it gets even sillier. So a diamond thief is on the cruise, causing Superman and Batman to have to they're like, uh-oh, we got to change into costume. And each thinks they're going to secretly change in front of the other in a pitch black room, and then a light shines through the porthole, and they both see each other changing, like, You're Superman. You're Batman. Wow.
So
well,
that early they knew each other's identities?
from 1952, yeah, they
Wow.
knew each other's identities from their first appearance. They never had the distrust of not knowing each other's identities. They're just like, yeah, I know who you are. I know who you are. And they stop the diamond thief, and that's that. And
They did that Superman can't move fast enough that he could have changed like that, and that he slowly is putting pants on, taking his pants off, and
Yeah,
he's
he-
like,
in the
"Uh-oh."
dark. And they do establish when they meet later in life that Superman always knows that Batman's Bruce Wayne because he
Yeah.
can see through his fucking costume.
well, they're both. Yeah, it's something they always get out of the way. Every time they've done a first meeting, it's just
Yeah.
like, boom, we know. Like we both know this stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's
Even
actually
the cartoon.
yeah, I have X-ray
yeah.
vision and I'm the greatest detective. We both know each other's identities. There's nothing to hold against one another.
Well, I guess if you're going to mention it now, let's talk about that Batman versus Superman animated scene.
I heard you were crazy. I didn't think you were stupid. Bruce Wayne. You peaked. I won't have vigilantism in my town. You'll be rid of me. As soon as I find the Joker. That may not be soon enough.
Ooh, they're not so friendly there.
Just imagine their shoulders all popped out,
Yeah.
puffed up at
But
one
then
another.
it's great because like Clark goes home at the end of the night, and then there's like this long like pull back into the window,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it goes
you-
back,
you
back,
realize-
back,
yeah.
and Batman's like a mile away, and he's like, "Gotcha."
Because Batman, I like that line you peaked. That's Batman
Yeah.
saying, I wouldn't have tried to find out your secret identity.
Mm.
But if you're going to look through my mask, then all bets are off, and
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
going to, well, let's be on the same
Yeah.
let's be on the same level here. I am the world's greatest detective. Like that also shows a big difference between Superman and Batman that's always been there. Superman has all these gifts, and for him, he's like, oh, what's Batman's secret identity? Bloop. Oh, got it. For Batman, it's like, what's Superman's secret identity? I have to work really hard to secretly stalk him and see him change. From that 1952 first meeting, it kind of, that sets up their relationship from then on, and it would start the world's finest books, and it was just them about being like chums, and they'd just be hanging out. Like most of the original World's Finest covers are like Batman and Superman playing baseball against each other, and
Croquet.
like Robin's there
Yeah.
too. And
And that's a
it's-
famous baseball player, Batman.
Batman.
it's just it's this weird, it's this old Americana chumminess
Yeah.
between them, because at that time it was Superman's era. Like Superman was the happy dude, Batman had to be as happy as Superman, and he was just the crime fighter, and that's pretty much how it stayed. Even like they were buddies in Justice League 2, they were always sharing books in that. They had a very long relationship as the world's finest team. But then we get to Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, we always talk about it in any DC history, but lightly, just to touch on it here, that it reset all of DC's continuity, which gave them a like clear starting point of none of their being best bros, handshake stuff,
Yeah.
like that never happened. So they
Yeah.
could start from a new place. And coincidentally, in 1986, June, to be specific, around the same time as Crisis on Infinite Earth happens, a comic comes out that completely changes their friendship from then on, and that is The Dark Knight Returns, specifically issue 4. So in The Dark Knight Returns, that is a classic Frank Miller book where Batman is now in his late 50s. He is retired, and now he gets out of retirement and is beating people up again, while Superman has become a tool for Ronald Reagan and an authoritative American government.
I just, speaking of which, I just watched the animated version
yeah?
recently. It is pretty damn good, and they do not shy away from the grotesque depiction of Ronald Reagan in the new cartoon.
He's pretty
that's
horrible
in
in
the
the
comic
book.
He looks awful.
But because, and it's put as Superman is a government stooge, because he's like, I believe in the American way, which he translates to be whatever the president tells me to do, I
Yeah.
do it. Even though in 1986 that means him doing some bad stuff. And one of those things he's told by him, bring in Bruce Wayne. Batman's going crazy.
AIDS, Superman.
And so Superman has to take him on, and it sets up the first ever, like, not in continuity, but it was never specifically like, this is a future. This isn't a thing that will never happen in continuity. This is the future of our continuity. And that's when he tries to bring in Batman, and they then have their iconic fight in Crime Alley. Batman in his super suit, and he's doing everything he can to beat Superman. One, Superman has been hit with a nuke that week, so he is weaker than he's ever been. Then he gets shot with a kryptonite arrow. Then he's being punched by a robot suit that is powered by the entire city of Gotham. And that's when Bruce Wayne beats him. And then there's the famous line about, remember my hands on your neck. this was the man that beat you. And I think it's hard to say it now because we've lived in a world of so many Superman Batman fights, but this was the first real one, and it was mean. It was bloody. Like, Batman hated Superman, and it always has been an accepted thing in nerd conversations then. Superman would always be Batman. Duh.
Right.
He's got all the powers, and Batman has no powers. But this turned it on its head, that it just became... Batman has the killer instinct. Superman is a dweeb who will get beaten up by Batman.
He doesn't have a killer instinct. Let's clarify that.
I had a feeling it began here. I just can't believe the first real fight is in my lifetime.
Yeah,
that's
it really
insane.
was. That's one of the first. I mean, there are a couple of classic ones where it's like they pretend to fight each other, or Brainiac takes over somebody's brain. It's all this mind control stuff, or a couple imaginary stories. But this was the first true fight.
Yeah, you have to imagine there was like an internal rule that, like, no, you don't do that. That is not allowed.
They're friends.
I cannot imagine someone didn't think about this.
No, I know, but Frank Miller's the one. He had just enough power to get away with crossing that line, and then that comes to. I mean, that kind of just changed everything from then on. Around the same time, in November of that same year in 86, that is when John Byrne, he had been doing the actual in-continuity reboot of Superman post-Crisis. And he gets to write a new first meeting between Batman and Superman in Man of Steel 3. It completely changes things. In that one, Superman meets Batman for the first time. And he's just like, you're a criminal, and I should arrest you and rip your mask off right now. And then Batman says... well, if you use your X-ray vision, you'll see that I have this energy field around me. If somebody super dense like a Kryptonian goes through it, a bomb will explode and kill an innocent person. And Superman's like, you would do that. You'd kill an innocent person just to stop me. I never thought you were so low. Then at the end, it's revealed that the person who would explode is Batman. The Batman had the bomb on himself, so it was... It was the old trickaroo there, but still...
Would you say it was a mystery? Yeah, there we go.
But that ends with, once Superman finds that out, he's like, okay, I guess you're not going to murder somebody, but we're not friends. Like, you tricked me. And they just have this kind of, like, uneasy friendship from there, and... it grows from there. Like, pretty soon in the post-crisis world, they're hanging out more and more, and they are getting friendlier, but they're still like, we have different styles, and like Clark will say, you shouldn't have done that, and Batman will say, you shouldn't have done that, and it's just kind of a level of grumpiness, though Batman was among the top of the mourners when, Superman died. Same with, it's not technically a fight, I wouldn't count it, but in Death in the Family, where Robin, Jason Todd, dies, Superman has to stop Batman from arresting the Joker when he's got diplomatic immunity from the Ayatollah, as happens from time to time. And then Batman gets mad at Superman and punches Superman in the face a few times until Batman's like, my hands hurt, and this isn't helping me deal with my grief. Oh, also there's
surprised Batman can have that revelation after decades of not dealing with his grief.
Well, at least with Robin's grief, he's like, but the other grief, I'm never going to.
What grief? I turned into a giant costume vigilante. I've dealt with my grief perfectly fine.
One thing that helps reconnect Batman and Superman is this thing of trust that they've done several times in other books, which is Superman gets the kryptonite ring from Lex Luthor. He's like, I can't keep this. It's dangerous for me, but who would I give it to? And he gives it to Batman. Oh. And he's like, if I ever step out of line, I want somebody I trust to stop me. So I'm glad you have kryptonite. And it's this thing that always keeps going, which would come up in their later fights. Then 1996, there was Kingdom Come, which was kind of built around Batman and Superman having ideological differences and nearly coming to blows.
Yeah.
But it also shows you, it was written by Mark Waid, who he loves Silver Age Superman more than any character, the one who's good buddies with Batman. And to show you how far it goes, like, Kingdom Come is a response to the grittiness of the 90s. Of them coming up to the edge of, like, Superman's just going to murder everybody because everybody just wants dark, mean people. And then they step back from that edge and they start repairing things. And that no book could start with Superman and Batman at each other's throats and then end with an epilogue of them hugging. Like the book ends with a Superman
restaurant.
Batman hug in a superhero restaurant. Yeah. It's crazy.
Each one looks like a painting.
It's beautiful.
It's Alec Ross,
you should read it. So then October 4th, 1997, that's when the first, I think, real Batman versus Superman moment outside of comics happened. That was the 3-part crossover World's Finest in the DC Animated Universe, which were technically just 3 episodes of the Superman animated series, but the Batman animated series premiered at the same time, around the same time. That's when they redrew Batman.
Yeah, it was like, there was a 92 to 96 probably or whatever of Batman the Animated Series and Superman, and then they redrew like everyone. Like Joker has like green skin instead of like the white, Mark Hamill face they all kind of know.
Yeah, when they redid everybody for a 3rd season on Kids WB, just to accompany the Superman animated series. And the 97 show is a takeoff actually on a World's Finest book by Dave Gibbons from the 90s too, which is where Lex Luthor and Joker team up and kind of one confuses the other's enemy. It's like, why is the Joker in Metropolis? That's your problem. Why is Lex Luthor in Gotham? That's your problem. Ugh. And they're kind of at each other's throats. But their first meeting, which I played earlier, was just so great because Superman's like, hey, you're not supposed to do this. And then Batman just like judo throws Superman. And it doesn't hurt Superman, but he's just in shock of like, what the hell just happened? And then he shoulder checks Batman into the wall, and Batman is clearly hurt. But they also come to terms like, you know what, I don't trust you all that much. You don't trust me, but we're good buddies now. And there's also a funny bit where
we are friends again.
Lois Lane dates Bruce Wayne in that story. And she finds out he's Batman, and she doesn't know that Clark Kent knows too. And so it's funny to see her on the other side of covering a secret identity to Clark Kent's face. I would also say another major moment in their fighting thing is in the July 2000 JLA 43-46, which is Tower of Babel.
Oh, yeah.
Which, another Mark Waid one. The plot is that Ra's al Ghul got Batman's plans on how to stop the entire Justice League, Superman included. And it is this, again, another like huge breach of trust. And again, it's using a Batman versus Superman plot against him. And they even made it into a really good animated feature called Doom. I would give that a watch.
Oh, yeah.
It's got all the animated series voices in it, but it looks kind of like the Young Justice show, though.
Yeah, it is like, even though Batman has this ring, he also has a plan to deal with any Justice League member if they got out of line. And then now the Justice League finds out, and then Batman's kind of ousted. Even though I would assume Superman... I read it a long time ago, so... I can't remember if is Superman ever like, well, I did give you permission.
Well, Superman though still felt betrayed by it, of just like, you should have protected this more at least, or let us know. And then Batman's just like,
I guess they did red kryptonite to him, not the ring, huh?
Yeah, but he's also Batman's point is, well, if I told you, then it wouldn't work. Like, the one that happens to Plastic Man in the comic is the meanest because he gets frozen and then shattered. And it just like breaks him. And same with Aquaman is given scarecrow toxin to make him afraid of water, so he's like drowning in air. It's some hardcore stuff. Tower of Babel is a really good book. And then also December 2001, that's when Frank Miller does Dark Knight Strikes Again, where we get round 2 of his fight, which just shows you that Frank Miller does not like Superman, because Batman beats Superman in 1 page. Like, Superman comes to the Batcave, and then he just gets punched like 10 times by kryptonite gauntlets on old Batman, and Batman says, "Get the hell out of my cave." And that's it. Like, Superman just leaves with his tail between his legs, like, "No, I suck. Batman's so cool."
So is he still working for president at the time?
He was working for President Luthor, but then he quits, and then he has sex with Wonder Woman so hard that they cause volcanoes to explode on Earth.
It's like a Primal Rage windscreen.
Then another big fight happens that also is a big moment for Batman in general and Superman. The Hush storyline, written by Jeff Loeb, art by Jim Lee. Big deal. Batman 612 is where Superman is being mind controlled by Poison Ivy, and they fight each other. And Batman is like, well, here's how my plan would work. You get all this internal monologue, which is really interesting. Batman saying, okay, I'm in Metropolis, and I know that there's sewers or lead lines, so Superman can't follow me. I'll be able to surprise him. I brought this kryptonite ring with me because I thought this might happen. I just have to keep punching him until and hope he doesn't come to his senses that he could rip my spine out if he even thought. And he also says, like, well, even though Poison Ivy's in his brain, Superman's will is so strong that she can never get him to kill.
Sure.
And the way he snaps Superman out of it is he drops Lois Lane from a building, just so Superman goes like, "Oh, he'll definitely save Lois." But it gave you a one of the most gorgeous fights they'd ever had because Jim Lee's drawing it.
Yeah.
And it also would lead to a year later, Jeff Loeb with Ed McGuinness launches Superman/Batman, which takes a step back from their antagonism even more because it's so silly to read it now, I have to say, because you have them dueling inner monologues, and they're always talking about, I respect Clark so much because he knows what the real power means. Bruce is one of the best men I've ever known. And they're just talking about each other so glowingly, so glowingly. It's crazy.
I guess at the time, because I was reading that for a while, and I liked it because it was kind of cheesy, but it was at least like kind of a throwback to the 50s, 60s
it's
stuff.
a world's finest book.
Yeah,
it totally is.
So it's like at the time, a lot of comics they're not needlessly gritty like 90s stuff, but comics are definitely growing up. Like this is meant for a 20 or 30-year-old, not a teenager or kid. Whereas this comic felt like, oh, this is way more of an all ages thing. Which
it was colorful. It was fun.
It was very, very colorful. Yeah.
There was a really good Shazam and Hawkman versus Batman and Superman fight. I really enjoyed it in that. But there were a couple Batman-Superman fights in that book. One was where Kingdom Come Superman somehow got into the regular timeline. And when he's fighting Batman, he's just like, what? Come on. I let you win those times. Like, I could kill you if I wanted to. I don't care. Shut up, Batman. And he just totally clowns on Batman, which I felt was Loeb in response to Miller's version of Superman would always lose to Batman. And there was also a bit where Batman got possessed by Kryptonite Man and was fighting Superman for an issue. But again, it was just more of these like, it's a different timeline, dude. It's possession and all that. But also the Dark Knight thing set up that you could have tons of Batman Superman fights in alternate universes. Like those happen more often than they don't, it would seem. One of my favorites is in Superman Red Son from July 2003. That's where what if Superman was a communist raised in Stalin's Russia? He fights communist Batman and Batman beats him. He surprises him with red sun lamps and just locks him away. And if it hadn't been for Wonder Woman, Batman would have won that fight as well. Another good book I'd like to suggest is Lex Luthor, Man of Steel, which is written by Brian Azzarello, and it is a hero book from the position of Lex Luthor. Like, Lex Luthor, I'm the hero. And in issue 3, he tricks Batman into fighting Superman. He's able to convince Batman that Superman is a threat. This is early in both their careers. And in that one, it is the classic thing you'd always expect. Superman sees this guy named Batman who has kryptonite, and he then, before Batman can even think, uses his super breath to blow the kryptonite out of Batman's hands, and then just kind of shoved him down. He's like, yeah, okay, we're cool, right? Like, you're not going to do anything, and you can't hurt me, so see ya. And that's the thing. If you give Batman a week to surprise Superman, and you told him, think of a plan to beat Superman, he could do it. But if you told Superman right now, stop Batman, he'd do it. Like if there's prep time, Superman's got a chance.
That's like the oldest adage that there is on the internet forums is with time to plan, like, is how you start every sentence with Batman. It's like, well, then yes, Batman could beat anyone if you gave him 24 hours.
I mean, Wolverine would have no chance against him if he had time to plan.
Yeah.
But if he just met Wolverine, I'd still give Batman a good chance. I'd give him a good chance,
but it's like you can't hurt him with anything.
No, I mean, if Batman would see that he's unkillable, then he would just go like, okay, then I'll just explode his face and just
something. That he can't. There is no lethal blow to Wolverine, so he would. But it may take too long. By the time there was like one Daredevil Batman crossover where he realizes Daredevil's blind, and it's like, oh, so if he's blind, then his ears are really susceptible, and then he has this noisemaker thing.
And he will figure that stuff out because he is the world's greatest detective. That's his thing. That's what their friendship was up to Flashpoint. They were pretty much friends, but they could sometimes get into fights. Then Flashpoint and the New 52 happens, and they restart from zero again. Their actual first meeting, chronologically, though this would get retconned, was in that the first Justice League story, Origin, by Jeff Johns and Jim Lee, where Batman and Green Lantern agree, let's go ask this guy named Superman in Metropolis what's up. And then Superman just beats the crap out of Batman and Green Lantern, and then Flash shows up to try to help, and even he can't stop him until Batman finally like convinces Superman, hey, no, we got to work together on this thing. That's when Superman finally listens. But it was, again, just some antagonism between them. But they, again, eventually just become bros again. And they get on the Justice League. They're all buddies. They go to Apokolips together, all the fun things they always do. Though there were 2 big fights in post-Flashpoint worth mentioning. That one was in Batman: The Dark Knight 5. Batman is taken over by a new form of scarecrow toxin, which makes him super strong. And he starts a fight with Superman until eventually Superman says, Superman's not fighting back. And then he finally just says, screw it, and punches Batman, nearly kills him, but the shock of the punch beats the scarecrow toxin, and Batman's like, oh, I'm sorry. Then meanwhile, the toxin gets reversed. Yeah. The toxin situation gets reversed in Batman Endgame.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you've read that one, Chris.
Yeah.
And
that's like the first page. It's like Superman coming for Batman.
Joker toxin has been spread to all the Justice League, who Batman beats, and then he gets to Superman, who he's crazier and he's been Joker-fied.
Is that where he like reveals like, yeah, I got a plan to kill all of you?
Yeah.
I always have.
Yeah, it's again they pull that out, but Batman's very just nonchalant about it, and the way he beats him, he's like, oh, I have this thing powered by a bunch of mini red suns. Like it's not the old kryptonite thing. I'm just gonna punch you with these red suns. And there's even a fun line where Superman in this Joker Crazy
put
says,
these red suns in an infinite gauntlet.
I mean, it becomes fan fiction to a point in that case. But Superman even says, while under Joker toxin, it's always been the question, who'd win in a fight, Superman or Batman? And then they have a pretty good knockdown drag-out fight, but Batman wins in that case again. I also want to say probably because it's in Batman's book. If it was a Superman writer,
his mind is controlled. He doesn't have Superman's actual brain is not working right now.
Exactly. But that's kind of all their big fights, and that's leading us now to Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, which is the first live action time Batman and Superman have ever shared the screen. In 75 years, they have never truly been in live action together in their own movie or TV show or anything.
I believe the only time you could even construe, and I love thinking about this the other day, in the background of the movie I Am Legend.
That's right.
Also by Warner Brothers. There's a logo very similar to the one that's on the movie right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Warner Brothers, in 2002, as early as 2002, they thought they were going to make a Batman-Superman film, but then they chose to go with Christopher Nolan's Batverse instead, which put all other live-action Batman projects on hold.
Yeah.
But in 2002, they were still planning on it, and even by the time they were making I Am Legend, it felt like somebody somewhere was thinking, yeah, we will make a Batman.
You have to do this before the apocalypse. That's all we're saying in I Am Legend.
And it seems like we're going to get it, but now the apocalypse is going to happen. Now the movie's coming out.
It is, and it is weird seeing like people introduce clips and guests on talk shows like, for the first time ever, Batman's fighting Superman. I'm like, that doesn't even register in my brain.
No way.
But still, like that rundown, that is it's happened surprisingly sparingly for a comic company like who's constantly who's out to like throw big ideas at the wall and see what sticks. I'm surprised with the restraint.
I mean, this is them coming to fisticuffs. There are a lot of other ones where it's like they kind of glare at each other, like, "Hey, my plan intersects with your plan." Like there's a lot of them, but those are definitely the most like important moments in history of.
We're talking about physical fights, people, not
physical fights,
not squabbles.
So I look forward to seeing how it looks in Dawn of Justice and how this fight goes. But that is our superhero spotlight.
Select your hero.